Live on channel 889 on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Power 98.7. Now we're talking.
Let's talk about the silent exit. This is why employees give up on HR and they choose to resign. So employees can feel harassed, bullied, or mistreated at work. I actually was listening to a story of a young woman who worked in the service industry in a restaurant or a pub. And she says that there was a co-worker of hers who was very, very sexually explicit with the co-workers who were women, who would say things that were very uncomfortable and rude. And it happened to her, and she just thought, okay, I'm going to leave it. But then 2 or 3 of the other servers said to her, please, please, please go report this to HR, because he does it to everyone. We all report it and nothing happens. And maybe something will happen this time. And she reported to HR and nothing happened. So all of these women were working with essentially a perpetrator amongst them, because they felt that there was nothing that the management or human resources or any department meant to protect staff and enforce fair treatment was there. So what then does an employee do who's being bullied by their manager? Where do they report the abuse? HR is in the manager's pocket. So how on earth do you get what you need to get done? We're digging into why so many employees feel completely failed by HR, why bias and friendships inside the organizations compromise the process, and how this betrayal leads to workers resigning silently. And what must companies do to fix the system and not have the good people driven out the door? HR Executive Kgolagano Lehobye is on the line with us, and you can be on the line with us as well on 0861 987 000. Kgolagano, a good Freedom Day to you, and welcome to Power Lunch.
Thank you very much, Pabi. A good afternoon to you too, and a happy Freedom Day.
Mm-hmm. So how often do you think that HR sides with management? And I know that even sounds a bit, juvenile to go, whose side are you on? But if you think about it, if there's something between yourself and the organization, there's supposed to be a kind of a mediator for you, I believe. Or maybe I'm completely wrong. What is HR's duty? But how often do you think they go with the organization, with management over employees?
Okay. Thank you, Pabi. Let me first just correct you. My name is Kgolagano.
I beg your pardon. Oh, okay. Kgolagano. Welcome.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. Look, it is normally it would be a myth, but there is a lot more HR professionals that are really siding with management, and that's because they don't understand their role as HR, right?
Oh.
And our role as HR is just very simple, is to make sure that policies of the company are adhered to by both employees and managers. Remember, all of us are employees. We are not owners. So therefore, this policy covers all of us. And it's just very sad that you find HR professionals who are still swaying towards management, and that's why employees leave or become despondent, or even just, portray HR as a very bad police, out there. And the law is very clear around that to say when an employee lays a grievance or the lodge a complaint, and the employer is not able to actually go at all lengths to make sure that that grievance has been resolved, the employer can actually take the employer on to the CCMA, because we've got a responsibility according to the Labor Relations Act to make sure that we look after all our employees.
Very interesting. Personal relationships between HR staff and management. I mean, how does that compromise the complaint process?
So there should not even be any personal relationships, because that is where we first in Africa, right? Generally, a mother will, when somebody is somebody's boyfriend or they are even relatives or whatever the case may be, it is seen as if this person will be far softer than if they are not related.
Yes.
So the rule is very clear, and should any company really allow that, there need to be serious processes that need to be followed to declare and to make sure that person is not in a position where they, hold power, for lack of a better word, or that they will find themselves compromised. Because at the end of the day, with personal relationships, there will always be a gray area. The trust is always broken.
Yeah. That HR trust, I can tell you how many people phone every time we have an HR conversation. It is on minus, that HR trust. And I don't know how in certain organizations, and it seems like much bigger kind of multinational organizations, there seems to be more of a strictness around human relations, around the mental health, physical health, ergonomic health even of the employees, but others just get away with doing whatever they want to do. And so I wonder, what are some of the subtle ways that HR dismisses or sabotages employees' complaints, and what employees then can do about it?
So the first thing is when an HR professional wants to be liked by the managers, right? And they then act as a shop steward for management. In a sense that when an employee comes and they lodge this complaint, instead of an HR person listening, actively listening to this employee and genuinely taking this complaint forward, they would make excuses for the manager. They would even give that employee answers, or think that they know what that employee needs. But the most important thing is for us as HR people to listen to our employees and also say to them, with this information that you're giving me now, how would you like me to help you? We are always assuming that we are right, but actually employees are the ones that are coming to us. Therefore, they know what they need out of us. And of course, if they don't, we are then in a space to advise them. But generally, people are very quick, or HR people are very quick to answer this employee and to dismiss what they're saying. And you can always give an answer for everything. You can always give an excuse for anything. You can always throw a policy at a person's face for anything. But are you giving them the ear? And but also, one of the most important things is to also make sure that you mediate between the two. You bring the manager in, you bring the employee in, and the manager must face this employee and understand what the employee is going through. You cannot be an HR person and you're saying you're going to do conflict management, but you're doing it separately. There needs to be a space where both of them sit down in one room. You are the HR person, and you mediate and make sure that out of that meeting, there is some amicable solution to all of that.
So listen to this. I mean, even Kgolagano, as you're giving me the exact kind of work spec for somebody in HR, let's listen to Ntate Sefudi and his experiences. Ntate Sefudi, welcome.
Afternoon, Pabi. How are you and your guests?
Well, welcome. Good to hear your voice.
A relevant topic, Pabi. A relevant topic, mostly on, because these are the rights that were denied to workers earlier, post-1994. But I'm telling you, the status quo has been maintained due to favors, because these people are employed by the employer, and they fail in the mandate of being the bridge between the worker and the employer in order to maintain stability and labor peace. Even during multilateral discussions, we in the unions, we feel the brunt of this. Issues are only resolved at CCMA level. Internally, it's very, very difficult. One of our labor relations officer tried to maintain a stand, but I'm telling you, it's out of the institution now.
He's
been fired, and this is the situation, and they fail in this regard, and they complain about non-performance, lower productivity, and it can be retraced back to there where there's no labor peace and stability due to the complicity of the employer and HR and labor relations officers. Good afternoon to you.
And to you, Ntate Sefudi. So there we go. Kgolagano, this is the general feeling. And what he said right at the end there, why is there a drop in productivity? Well, because nobody feels safe anymore.
Low staff morale, buddy.
Absolutely.
Low staff morale.
Yeah.
High absenteeism. Nobody wants to wake up on a Monday morning to go to work because they feel unvalued. They feel they're not part of the team. They feel they're not listened to, And but also the worst of it is that we lose talent. As employers, we lose good talent. And also we are also unable to also attract talent. Because when you call a candidate and you say, hey, I've got a position, would you like to come for an interview? They ask you, which company do you work for? And if you say company X, Y, and Z, they'll say, oh, sorry, I know you treat your employees badly. That's our reality as HR people. But just to go into what Mr. Was saying now,
yes,
I fully agree with him that there is always the issue of, as a shop steward, you run the risk of being victimized. You run the risk of being unpopular. It is always important, and I always this to unions as well, to say it's always important that even though our shop stewards are still employees, and we need to make sure that we've got a ducks in a row. So when there is an issue of performance, let's have a conversation around this person's performance. When the issue of behavior, let's have a conversation, because he is right. We end up going to CCMA, and when we get there, we realize we did not follow all the processes correctly. And to be honest, that's our role as HR, to make sure that we tick all of those boxes.
Who realizes they haven't done all the right things?
9 out of 10 chances, we as HR people do. 9 out of 10, and I'm being honest with you, 9 out of 10 chances, we realize that we did not follow the process, which speaks to, again, when you started to say employees feel unsafe.
Yeah. 100%. Sorry to interrupt you, Kgolagano. Just stay on the line with me. We'll find out what's happening in the headlines, and then there are 1 or 2 questions that I'd like to ask.
This is Power Lunch
With Pabi Moloi.
on Power 98.7.
Kgolagano Lehobye is our HR executive, and I'm just having a giggle. I don't know if you heard, Kgolagano, in the advert, it was referring to a colleague of mine's show who was also talking about HR matters, and that HR specialist was also talking about ways for you to leave the organization should you not have any joy with the HR department. I mean, it's almost the corporate pandemic in a lot of ways. And so the reason why I wanted to keep you on the line with us is because part of our title today is the silent exit. So we understand the giving up on HR, and then people choose to resign, and it's just you just do what you need to do rather than escalate, rather than fight, rather than whatever it is. Many employees choose to resign silently.
Yeah. It's sad, and let me tell you why it's sad. Because we lose a golden opportunity as employers to get feedback, right? To get feedback, sometimes you can't retain that employee. So first choice is always, how do I keep you, and how do I make things better for you? But if you can't keep that person, can we then at least get the feedback so that those that are left behind, we can then make the experience better for them? But normally when an employee exits silently, they'll resign, but they become very passive, and they actually don't want to even be honest in terms of why they're leaving, because they always don't trust us, right? And then we end up continuously then doing the same mistakes, losing more people. Yeah, hence I'm saying it's just a sad situation.
Okay, it feels like a sad situation.
I feel very passionate about it.
Yes, but it also feels frustrating, because what is the answer? Exactly.
What is the answer? The answer is twofold. One is that our managers need to understand that they are not just operational managers, right? They should not just chase KPIs, but they are managing people, human beings. Therefore, I always say to my managers at work, think about it. If your children had a manager like you, how would you feel? If your children go to work and they have a manager, how would you feel? And for me, I think people need to really think long and hard about that. But more than anything, I think, us as HR, we need to rebuild that trust. And that's just going back to the basics, As an HR person, you are known by everybody in the business. But you should not be a celebrity. You should not, run for being popular. You must actually be that person that people know and trust, that you stand for the truth. You've got a lot of integrity.
Yeah.
Wrong is wrong, right is right, regardless of who the person is.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, I think this is a conversation that we can have for hours and hours, and that we must keep coming back to, because more people are finding themselves kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place with their HR department. And we're finding more and more young people entering the workspace and then kind of being shocked by, yo, but I told you about my mental illness or, whatever I needed to do at home, and now it's being used against me by HR. How can this happen? And also what your actual rights are. I walked into an HR office once and I think my manager was there and I wanted to speak to HR, not my manager. I wanted to speak to, because these people have two different jobs. And the HR said, have you spoken to your manager? I said, yes. And she said, yeah, well, whatever your manager says is the thing that I'm going to say. Whatever your manager says, that's it. And I was like, oh, so there is no HR in this building. What is the point? And I could have been wanting to talk to her about, I've got my second pregnancy and I just want to plan but she just was like, whatever you were told before, that's all I care about. And I think that we need to get to a point where either we go back to what it was or it evolves into what it needs to be, or the truth is just laid out, that HR isn't here for you. It is for the organization. Or I've heard, of course, of external HR coming into certain organizations as well. So please, will you come back and talk to us again about more of these issues as they arrive as an HR executive and now good friend to the show?
Absolutely, Pabi. Thank you so much. I will definitely come back because we've just touched now on another one, pregnancy for females.
Yeah.
We've touched on the youngsters, the gap between the youngsters and the older generation at work. These are some of the things that we navigate every day. Yeah. So definitely, I will definitely come back. And I really hope that, there's a kind of platform where we teach people and we also give them options, to say it is okay to go to HR. It is okay to go to your manager. Both of them have got two different hats. But you're right. HR needs to go back to basics. We need to keep up with the times as HR. And we need to understand our workforce very well so that we can service them better. So,
Kgolagano Lehobye, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And we'll make sure we'll make another time to chat together again.